My name is Natalia Foster. I'm 36 years old, and the moment my relationship ended didn't sound like heartbreak. It sounded like something colder, something casual, like a line that never should have been said, spoken without hesitation. If your brother died here, at least let me film it. Adrian didn't even raise his voice when he said it. That was the worst part. He said it like it made sense, like what I was protecting was just an inconvenience. I lived just outside Columbus, in a farmhouse my parents bought when I was 8. 2 acres, white siding, a long gravel drive that crunches under tires before you even reach the porch. There's a maple tree out front that turns deep red every fall. From the outside, it looks like the kind of place people use in horror movies. Quiet. Still, the kind of stillness that makes people uneasy. But nothing supernatural ever happened there, just something real. My younger brother Oliver died in that house when he was 17. Faulty wiring in the attic room, a small fire, too much smoke before anyone could reach him. It's been almost 20 years. And even now, saying it out loud feels distant, like it happened to another family. My parents sold me the house cheap after my father moved to Florida. I was the only one who could live there without turning it into something haunted. I renovated most of it over time. New windows, new roof, new wiring. But the attic room, I left mostly the same. Sloped ceiling, dark blue walls, his old desk still pushed against the corner, a chipped mug filled with dried-out pens. I didn't turn it into a shrine. I just didn't erase him. When I met Adrian, I thought he understood that. He was 31, lived in Dublin, worked in social media, but his real focus was his horror channel online. At first, it was small, late-night uploads, cheap microphones, dramatic lighting, stories that leaned more on atmosphere than substance. But he was good at it, charismatic, quick with edits. He knew how to make something feel bigger than it was. We dated for 2 years. He moved into my house 8 months ago. And somewhere in that time, I stopped noticing where performance ended and the real person began. At the beginning, he was respectful. He asked once about the attic, why I kept it the way it was. I told him grief doesn't always need to be useful. He nodded, kissed my shoulder, said that made sense. I believed him. Then his channel started growing. A sponsor sent him better equipment. A podcast invited him on. One of his videos, some abandoned funeral home, started gaining traction. That's when things shifted. Slowly, subtly. Places stopped being places. They became locations. Moments became content. We'd drive past an old building, and he'd ask me to turn around because it had thumbnail potential. I laughed the first few times. I shouldn't have. About 3 weeks before everything fell apart, he asked if he could film a Halloween special in the attic. He kept it light. Just candles, voiceover, no names, no details, just the atmosphere. I told him no. He asked again 2 days later. Said the room was perfect visually. I said no again. That's when he got annoyed. You act like I'm asking to dig someone up. I remember looking at him, really looking, and saying, "You're asking to turn the only place I still feel close to my brother into a set." He backed off. At least, it looked like he did. The real moment happened on a Friday night. I came home late, picked up Thai food on the way. When I walked in, there were people in my house. Adrian's ex-girlfriend, Vanessa, who sometimes worked with him on editing, and a guy named Cole, a videographer. There were laptops open on my dining table, a ring light leaning against my chair, printed pages spread out like a plan already in motion. I knew immediately I wasn't going to like what I saw. Adrian smiled like nothing was wrong. Perfect timing. We were just going over the fall special. I set my keys down slowly and looked at the papers. At the top of one page, in bold letters, it said, "The Boy in the Attic." Something inside me went very still. I didn't yell. I didn't react the way people expect. I just asked, "What is this?" Adrian lifted his hand slightly, like calming me down was already necessary. "It's just a concept. We're not using real names." I picked up another page. Bullet points. Old family house. Teen boy died upstairs. Sister keeps room untouched. Lingering presence. I put the paper back down carefully. Tell me I'm reading this wrong. Vanessa stared at her laptop. Cole looked like he wanted to disappear. Adrian sighed, already irritated. "Natalia, don't make this bigger than it is." "That sentence never helps," I said quietly. Then I asked him directly, "You were planning to film a horror episode based on my brother dying in this house?" He shook his head. "It's not based on him. It's inspired by the atmosphere." I felt something cold settle in my chest. "The atmosphere is my brother's death." And then he said it. Casual. Flat. Like he was explaining something obvious. "If your brother died here, at least let me film it." The room went silent. Vanessa looked like she might be sick. Cole muttered, "Adrian," under his breath. I stared at him for maybe 2 seconds. That was enough. Then leave. He blinked. Excuse me? You, Vanessa, him, all of it. Out. He laughed. Short, disbelieving. Natalia, be serious. I am. Vanessa was already packing up cables. Smart. Cole grabbed the light stand without saying anything. Adrian stepped closer, lowering his voice. You're overreacting because you're emotional. I met his eyes. You tried to turn my brother into content. I tried to make something meaningful. Out! He stood there for a second longer, waiting for me to soften. I didn't. Eventually, he grabbed his bag. As he walked out, he said, You're sabotaging something important because you refuse to deal with your trauma. I locked the door behind him. And for a moment, I just stood there in the kitchen, breathing. By 9:30, I had deactivated his garage access, changed the door code, moved all of his camera equipment into the garage. By 11:15, everything else followed. Clothes, props, equipment. The black curtains he insisted made everything more cinematic. At 11:47, he texted, You cannot be serious. I replied, Pick up tomorrow, 2 to 4. Bring someone. The attic is not a set. The messages came in waves after that. You misunderstood. You always shut down. You're choosing the dead over the living. I stopped replying. Sometime after midnight, I walked upstairs. Stopped outside the attic door. Everything was the same. Quiet. Still. And I remember thinking something simple. If someone loves you, they don't look at your worst memory and see an opportunity. The next morning didn't feel like a breakup. It felt like cleanup. Not emotional cleanup. Not the kind where you sit with coffee and replay conversations, trying to figure out where things went wrong. That part was already done. This was structural. Boxes lined up in the garage, labels neat, deliberate, camera gear separated carefully from personal items, even his hard drives wrapped in padded sleeves so nothing could be damaged in transit. I wasn't angry. That surprised me the most. I was clear. Adrian arrived at 2:12 p.m. He didn't come alone. His older sister, Marissa, stepped out of the passenger seat first. Soft expression, neutral tone. The kind of person who speaks gently enough that it takes a moment to realize she's disagreeing with you. Adrian followed behind her, already tense, already rehearsed. Marissa looked at the rows of labeled boxes in my garage and gave a small, controlled smile. This seems a little extreme, she said. It's organized, I replied. Adrian didn't waste time. I said something wrong, he said, in a bad moment. I leaned against the frame of the garage door. You built an entire concept around my brother. We hadn't finalized anything. That made me laugh once. I couldn't help it. You had a title page, I said. You had a crew in my house. Marissa stepped in, voice soft, measured. Maybe everyone just needs to slow down. I'm not rushed, I said. I'm done. Adrian exhaled sharply, like patience was something he was forcing himself to perform. You always do this, he said. You shut down instead of talking things through. I looked at him, really looked. And for the first time, I noticed something I hadn't before. He wasn't trying to understand. He was trying to redirect. This isn't a communication issue, I said. You crossed a boundary I made very clear. It was a creative direction, he snapped. You're acting like I did something unforgivable. I didn't raise my voice. You did. Marissa shifted slightly, glancing between us. Adrian cares about you, she said. He just sees things differently. That's the problem, I said. Adrian ran a hand through his hair, pacing once across the driveway. Can we just pause, he asked. A week. Let things cool down. I already made the decision. He stopped, looked at the boxes again, then at me. And that's when he said the thing that ended whatever was left. You know this wouldn't have blown up, right? He said. That video could have changed everything for me. There it was. Clear. Unfiltered. Not about us. Not about respect. About reach. I felt something settle inside me. Not anger. Not sadness. Just confirmation. That's exactly why this is over, I said. His face shifted. Confusion first. Then frustration. Then something sharper. You never support what matters to me, he said. I supported your work, I replied. I didn't agree to become part of it. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. That's dramatic. No, I said quietly. It's accurate. For a second, neither of us spoke. Then, like a switch flipped, his expression changed again. Tears. Fast. Sudden. The kind that arrive fully formed, as if they've been waiting for the right moment to be deployed. This is insane, he said, voice breaking. You're throwing everything away over one sentence. I didn't move. It wasn't one sentence, I said. It was everything leading up to it. Marissa placed a hand lightly on his arm. Let's just get your things, she murmured. And just like that, it was over. No shouting. No scene. just the sound of boxes being loaded into the back of her SUV. At one point, Adrian paused when he saw how carefully I had packed his equipment. He stared at the padded drives for a moment, like he didn't understand how kindness could exist alongside finality. Before getting into the car, he looked at me one last time. "You're going to regret this," he said. "You embarrassed me." I held his gaze. "No," I said. "I'm going to regret not seeing this sooner." He didn't respond. He just got into the car and left. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. By Sunday evening, the messages started. Not from him, from other people. Vanessa first. A long paragraph about how horror creators explore difficult truths and how not every uncomfortable story is exploitation. I didn't reply. Then Marissa. "Avery," she corrected herself in the next message. "Adrian isn't doing well. Maybe you could show some grace." Grace. That word lingered longer than it should have, because it implied I had done something cruel. By Monday morning, it spread further. A mutual acquaintance messaged me on Instagram. "I heard you weaponized your brother's death to shut down Adrian's project." That phrase irritated me enough that I responded. Just once. I sent a photo. The storyboard. The boy in the attic. There was a pause. Then, oh, no follow-up after that. I thought maybe that would slow things down. It didn't. At 1:18 a.m. Monday, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Adrian, sobbing. "I'm outside," he said. "I got into an accident. I didn't know where else to go." His voice sounded frantic, unsteady. For a split second, instinct kicked in. Concern, habit. But something in me stopped. I opened the security app on my phone, checked the driveway cameras. Empty. No headlights. No car. No Adrian. I held the phone away from my ear for a moment, then brought it back. "If you need help," I said calmly, "call emergency services." There was silence. Then, well, never mind. The line went dead. No accident. No emergency. Just a test. Or a tactic. The next morning, I ordered 2 additional outdoor cameras and upgraded the storage. Total cost, $347. Worth every dollar. That afternoon, my neighbor Walter stopped me at the mailbox. "You had someone parked near your gate last night," he said. "Black SUV, around 10. "Did you get a plate?" I asked. He grinned. Pulled out his phone. "Retired delivery driver, observant in the best possible way." "I figured you'd want it," he said. 2 grainy photos. A partial plate. Enough. I saved everything. Because at that point, something had shifted. This wasn't about a breakup anymore. It was about patterns. And I wasn't going to ignore them. By Wednesday, something in my life moved forward. Quietly. Almost out of place compared to everything else. My director called me into her office and offered me a lead role on a system migration project we'd been preparing for months. Bigger team, more responsibility, a raise that felt like actual progress instead of just survival. I said yes without hesitation, because one thing I've learned is this. Chaos only takes over your life if you let it become the center of it. Adrian, apparently, had chosen the opposite approach. About 10 days after the breakup, a message came in from my cousin, Seth. "Please tell me this isn't your house." Attached was a screenshot. I knew before I opened it, but I opened it anyway. It was a teaser video, posted on Adrian's channel. No names, no direct references. But the image was unmistakable. My house, white siding, gravel drive, the maple tree in the front. The caption read, "True story, real death, full episode Friday." For a moment, everything went completely still. Then something colder replaced it. This wasn't subtle anymore. This wasn't miscommunication. This was deliberate. I downloaded everything immediately. Screenshots, links, comments. People were already asking where it was filmed. A few claimed they recognized the road. One comment simply said, "Road trip." That was the moment it stopped being personal and became dangerous. I called Adrian once. He answered on the 3rd ring, calm, almost amused. "Take it down," I said. "It's artistic," he replied. "You don't own a vibe." I closed my eyes briefly. "You used my house," I said, "and implied a real death." "It is a real story," he said. "You told me that yourself." Something in his tone had changed. Not defensive, not apologetic. Certain, like he had already rewritten the situation in his head. "We could have handled this privately," he added, "if you hadn't overreacted." That was the end of the call. I didn't argue. I didn't explain. I didn't try to reach him. Because there was nothing left to reach. I called an attorney instead. His name was Daniel Brooks. Calm voice, direct questions, no unnecessary commentary. I sent him everything. The teaser, the screenshots, the storyboard, the call logs, the plate photos Walter had taken. Within an hour, he called me back. She's not creating content, he said. She's creating a liability. That sentence grounded everything. By that afternoon, he had drafted a cease and desist. Immediate removal of the video. No further use of my property. No implication of access. No contact outside legal channels. For about 6 hours, I thought that might be enough. Then Friday came. At 6:40 p.m., my phone buzzed with a camera alert. Front porch. Motion detected. I opened the app, and there he was. Adrian, standing on my porch like nothing had changed. With him, Vanessa, Cole, and 2 other people I didn't recognize. Equipment cases, a boom mic, someone holding what looked like lighting gear. For a second, I just stared. Not surprised. Not even angry. Just certain. I grabbed my keys and drove home faster than I should have. By the time I pulled into the driveway, Adrian was mid-sentence, explaining something to Cole. He agreed before, he was saying. He's just being emotional now. I stepped out of the car. Nobody is stepping inside this house. They all turned. Vanessa looked uneasy. Cole looked confused. One of the new people looked like they regretted every decision that had led them there. Adrian smiled. That same controlled, performative smile. We're just getting exterior shots, he said. Maybe a little hallway footage. You're trespassing, I replied, after receiving a legal notice. He folded his arms. You can't trespass me from a place I lived. I held up my phone. Watch me. And I called the sheriff. While we waited, the tension shifted. Cole stepped closer to Adrian, lowering his voice. You said this was cleared. It was, Adrian said, until she got dramatic. Show him the notice, I said. He didn't. Of course he didn't. 15 minutes later, a deputy pulled up. I handed over everything. The notice. The screenshots. Proof of ownership. Adrian tried to explain. Said he was documenting something real. Something emotional. The deputy looked at him for a long second. Then said, flatly, you need to leave. No debate. No negotiation. Just final. Adrian's composure cracked. Not because he was hurt. Because he was being corrected. Publicly. That mattered more to him. He tried one last time. This is my work. It's not your property. The deputy cut in. That was it. They packed up. Slowly. Awkwardly. Vanessa avoided my eyes. Cole didn't say a word. Before leaving, the deputy issued a formal trespass warning. Clear. Documented. Enforceable. I watched them drive away. And for the first time since this started, I felt something close to relief. It should have ended there. It didn't. The teaser came down. Eventually. But not before Adrian posted about it. About me. About being silenced. About people who can't handle truth. Vanessa reposted it. Marissa sent me a message saying Adrian had lost a sponsor. Like that was something I should feel responsible for, I replied once. He lost it when he chose content over reality. No answer after that. Then came the flowers. Delivered to my office. Black roses. Dried stems. Dark ribbon. A card tucked inside. You can't bury a good story. I stared at it for a long time, then took a picture, handed it to security, filed a report, and sent everything to Daniel. Because at that point, there was no ambiguity left. This wasn't emotional anymore. This was escalation. By the time Daniel told me we were filing for a protective order, I didn't hesitate. Not because I wanted escalation, but because I understood something clearly now. Waiting for Adrian to realize he had gone too far was not a strategy. It was a risk. The final incident came 3 nights later. Around 11:07 p.m., my phone lit up again. Motion alert. End of the driveway. I opened the feed. A car. Lights off. Engine still running. I didn't need to zoom in to know who it was. Adrian. Alone this time. No crew. No performance. Just sitting there. Like proximity itself was enough. I watched for a full minute. No movement. No attempt to come closer. Just presence. That was enough. I called the sheriff. Again. By the time they arrived, he was still there. And this time, the tone was different. No conversation. No explanation. Just documentation. And consequence. The next morning, Daniel filed everything. Trespass violation. Harassment. Pattern of behavior. Every screenshot, every message, every recorded moment. 5 weeks later, we were in court. I wore a blue button-down. Nothing dramatic. Nothing symbolic. Just steady. Daniel had organized everything into a single folder. Chronological. Clean. Undeniable. Adrian walked in looking different. Softer clothes. Neutral colors. Carefully composed. Like he had studied what innocence was supposed to look like. His sister Marissa sat behind him. Vanessa, too. Cole wasn't there. That told me everything I needed to know. When the judge asked why we were there, Daniel spoke first. My client ended a relationship after her partner attempted to commercialize her brother's death and private residence for online content, he said. Since that point, he has engaged in repeated unwanted contact, property-based harassment, and public posting that could attract strangers to her home. No emotion, no exaggeration, just facts. Adrian's lawyer responded exactly how I expected. Misunderstanding, creative differences, emotional fallout from a breakup. No malicious intent. Then Daniel began presenting evidence. The storyboard, the teaser, the messages, the late-night call, the security footage. And finally, the card. You can't bury a good story. The judge read that one twice, slowly. Adrian was given the chance to speak. He stood, and for a moment, he looked like the version of himself I used to know. Not the one on camera, not the one on my porch. Just him. He said he loved me. That horror had always been how he processed things. That I knew who he was when we met. That he never meant to disrespect Oliver. And here's the truth. I believed part of that. Not all of it. But part. I don't think Adrian woke up one day and decided to become someone who would cross that line. I think he just stopped seeing it, stopped recognizing where story ended, and people began. When it was my turn, I didn't say much. I had already decided what mattered. I never asked him to stop doing what he loves, I said. I asked him not to use my brother's death as material. I paused. He continued anyway. That was enough. The order was granted. 1 year, no contact, no indirect contact. 500 feet away from my home, my workplace. No posting images. No references suggesting access. Clear, simple, final. Outside the courthouse, Marissa caught up to me. She really did love you, she said quietly. I looked at her for a moment. That wasn't the issue, I replied. Then I walked away. And that was the end of it. Or at least the end of him in my life. The house is quiet again now. Not the heavy kind of quiet. Not the kind that feels like something is missing. Just normal. I repainted the attic trim, replaced the old desk lamp, had an electrician install better lighting, not to erase anything, not to preserve it exactly as it was, just to take care of it the right way. A few weeks later, I met someone. Daniel, not dramatic, not loud, the kind of person who listens more than he speaks. The first time he came over, he glanced toward the attic stairs and asked, "Is that space private?" "Yes," I said. He nodded, and didn't ask again. That was all it took. We're taking things slowly. Carefully, the way something real is supposed to begin. As for Adrian, I've heard things. Lost sponsorships, shifted content, stories about a controlling ex. That part doesn't matter. People like him always find a way to keep telling a version of events where they're still the center. But I'm not part of that version anymore. And I don't need to be. Because the truth is simple. Some people say they love dark stories. But what they really love is access. Access to fear, to grief, to the worst moment of someone else's life. They call it art, or honesty, or content, because those words sound better than what it actually is. If someone can stand in a place where a family lost someone, and think about lighting, about angles, about views, they are telling you exactly who they are. Believe them. The problem isn't horror. It isn't ambition. It isn't even the camera. It's what someone chooses to do when they're standing in front of your pain, and whether they see it as something to respect or something to use.